podcast. We got a great episode lined up for you tonight. We got one of the best in the East Coast, a guy we've been following for a long, long time, a very big name in the East Coast, a veteran of the sport. First of all, John, my main man, how you doing?
Doing good, man.
Yeah,
Back to full blown winter here, up on
tell
top of
me.
the mountain in the valley. So
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Adam, how about you?
Good guys. Thanks for having me.
Good. No, thank you for joining us. Obviously, everybody's kind of in the same situation. How are you handling quarantine where you are in New Brunswick?
I mean, it's going pretty good. Like the quarantine here, they're starting to loosen up restrictions and stuff. So, we got it. I don't think there's been any new cases in like over a week now. So it's looking good in that regard. So,
Fingers crossed.
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Adam, 7-2, permanent at light heavyweight now. I'm assuming, formerly middleweight, way back when, right?
No, I mean, I still feel the best at middleweight. That's the most comfortable, like in the competitions, and most of my fights, have been at middleweight, and I'm still undefeated at middleweight. So
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, multiple title holder. You held the Elite One title at middleweight and light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Man, I remember being on the amateur circuit and that up in New Brunswick like 8, 9, 10 years ago, and you would be on the same cards, and you were just knocking people dead back then. So even though we hadn't met each other, I've known who you are for a long time. We've been in the same, at the same events. I don't think I ever fought on the same card as you with Elite One, but I was definitely there with my own guys, if not. And yeah, I mean, you basically just went on a tear at the East Coast forever, right?
Yeah.
What was it? A submission and then 6 first round TKOs, KOs. Got the call to the UFC. I mean, you're probably sick of talking about how that went down.
it is.
Yeah.
Attaboy, John.
Segue. Yeah,
what a
no,
dick.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, man. I mean, we know what happened. Piss hot. That fell through, and then you went and fought with TKO. Suffered your first loss, I guess, since your very first professional fight.
Yeah.
Didn't fight at all in 2019, from what I could tell on the internet.
No.
Yeah.
No. I was scheduled. I was scheduled for a couple events, but during that suspension there, I'd hurt my back again, and so it was kind of rough during that time. And then I took that fight in was it September 2018. Probably wasn't ready, but mentally I needed it. Competing is getting into mixed martial arts actually has kind of always been my therapy since my time in the military.
Mhm.
And not being able to be active, and even during the suspension, there's a lot of even places that I used to train at that I wasn't able to train at because a lot of them were considered national training facilities.
Really?
Yeah. So I guess how it works is if someone is suspended and you're you're training there, I guess, or at least what I was told is it can affect other athletes that are training at that same facility.
Interesting.
Really? That seems odd,
That's
considering
weird.
there's tons of guys.
Yeah,
It's
so
bad that they would do that.
maybe it was just a bunch of fluff that was blown at me. But
Yeah.
so in saying that, like I really just needed to get back in there mentally.
Yeah, of course.
I just needed to do it, and then there was a couple events I was supposed to do after, but I just wasn't physically. I just wasn't there, and so I had to take a step back for a little while and just kind of work on my rehab. Trying to rehab and compete for train for an event at the same time just doesn't really jive. But I've been seeing an osteopath and a good massage therapist, and I've been doing some physio stuff, and working with Jamie Wright at Whole Therapy at Ottawa, and it's still taking it day to day, but to be honest, like I'm feeling better than I have in a couple of years. So
Nice,
amazing. Is this an injury from fighting, or is this something old that came up?
Yeah, well, the injury originally happened in the military.
Okay.
So we were doing some road clearing. I was a combat engineer in the military, and we had the family hatch of an armored vehicle. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was probably a good probably 2.5 inches thick of steel hatch that was at the top of an armored vehicle, and there was me and two other guys that were kind of sticking out of it, and we were doing some road clearing drills. So we each had a kind of a one guy had to watch the center of the road. I had to watch the left side of the road. Another guy was watching the right. And we're looking for disturbed earth or, kind of any anomalies that we can go out and search it before, progressing forward.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of stopping and starting. We're going down a hill. And one of the times that we stopped, I guess the latch had let go of this hatch and it swung shut. And I just happened to be the guy out of the three of us that had the thickest torso. So it just smashed me right in the back. And I was out for probably about 6 weeks. But where I was still active in the Army, like I never, like I had to keep moving. So, everything was like still moving, still kind of lubricated. It was painful, but I kind of, got through it because I had to. And then every couple of years after that, I seemed to kind of like re-injure it. But I never had the luxury of being able to kind of not do anything. I always still had to push through it.
Mm-hmm. But
then it just happened to hurt it again. But this time I happened to be suspended. So, I wasn't really training. I was kind of like mentally, I was in a real low point. When it popped again, I did the worst thing you could do, and that was nothing. And it just seized up. Like, so then when I went to go get back and kind of got that motivation again, like, suspension's coming up. I got to fight again. Let's do this. It just did not want to work for me. And so, there's a whole series of struggles that went through with that, but, I don't change it. I needed that fight. I had to do it for my head, and, it is what it is, and it just relit that fire,
which is good to see, man. It's, like not everybody, but it's important for people to go through those things. And by the way, thank you for your service before I go any further. But it's important for people to go through struggles, right? And then it's not always the best to go through them, but when you can come out and then with the outlook you have now, you're positive, you're going to go back. Kind of, obviously you took a hard loss, but the sky's the limit, whether it's Fight League Atlantic or wherever you end up, right?
Yeah, well, that's the way I look at it. Like, I had that first loss, like it was like my pro debut or whatever, and I went on from there. Won 2 titles and made it to the UFC after that one.
Big.
And I mean, coming back and getting this other loss. I mean, it's not like it was to nobody.
No, he's in the UFC and very good.
Number one ranked
Probably,
guy, whatever in the country, like went to the UFC. So, and like I said before, I mean, I take a lot of motivation from that. I feel I was able to cause more damage in 3 minutes than 11 other opponents combined. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I guess we take our victories where we can, I guess. So, it's kind of like, hey, after being on the couch and coming back and being able to jump in and do that, like, fuck, let's get this body working and let's see where we can go. With
a full camp and you're actually feeling good. I know, sorry to cut you off there, John, but one question I do want to get in is Mike Fitz. Mike Fitz is a guy who's been around the game for a long, long time. He's been to a couple of my events with judo and other jiu-jitsu athletes. The guy doesn't get enough credit, I don't think. He's involved with a lot of really high-level athletes. What's your connection with him? Obviously, you're tight, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, Fitz is like one of my best friends, and you say that I've been around, but the funny thing is the first fight that Fitz hasn't been there in 10 years is the first one I lose. So.
There you go, right? That's what I mean. That's the thing, right?
Like, I mean, he came even to Vancouver. Like, the guy even made the trip. Like, took the time and
awesome.
and did the milk run. Did the milk run through the airports to make it out to Vancouver and everything, and was just there with me every step of the way. He was with me in Pittsburgh. Like like I said, the first fight I lose is the first fight he wasn't there in like 10 years, so
very important.
Yeah, very important. Part of the magic, that guy.
Yeah, that's right. What's he up to?
Really though, I used to love seeing that guy at all the events, man. Hanging out with him and Dana. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's got got his own car dealership now.
Oh,
wow.
nice.
Yeah, and the guy's pumping it out. Like the guy, he takes care of people. I pop in there before this
No
COVID
doubt.
thing happened. I was popping in there, man, and the guy's just like, helping people that weren't able to get vehicles other places. So, little plug for him, D&L Motors out of Fredericton. He sells
Nice.
shit online. Get at you wherever you're at. He'll hook you up.
There you go. There you go. Dino. Yeah. Well, sorry. Go, John. Do you have a question?
You know what? I wanted to touch on the military thing again. So, I mean, you got in real young, from what I understand, and you were in the military for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Retired military. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you don't want me to bring this up. Like 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I think it was a Lions Club in Moncton at one of the events. Did you knock a guy out and then immediately proceed to be arrested for being AWOL?
That was in Halifax.
In Halifax, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was in
This
Moncton.
is like TMZ.
I was sitting there today. I'm like, was that Adam Hunter? He was in the military. I was like,
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah,
man.
there was a difference of opinions.
Yeah.
On between me and someone of a quite higher rank. Yeah,
I'm sorry, man. That's like an obscure one to bring up, but I remember.
Yeah,
I never even heard that.
It was just a crazy story, right?
Off the record, we'll go on that one.
and then so I guess the objective was to arrest me before like getting into the cage, and but the military police didn't have jurisdiction, so they had to go through the Dartmouth police, because I believe it was at the Forum. I believe
Okay.
it's in Dartmouth, but
I was thinking it was in Moncton still, so yeah. I'm way off.
And so I guess that because the Dartmouth police spoke to me after, and they were like the military police wanted us to arrest you, like going in there, but they said like, man, like this crowd, like if it screw up this event, like
Yeah.
plus if this guy goes crazy, we want him to be tired first, right? Yeah.
Smart.
So the fight lasted about, I think it was 6 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually look at the time, the ref took his time to call it off, so it was probably like 4.5 seconds. But anyway, 6 seconds.
Oh man.
But,
they must have been fucking terrified. Arrest you after that.
Yeah.
But they were all right though. They let me they let me get some Subway for the long drive back to New Brunswick.
Wow.
So that was nice of them for that. But
yeah, things happen, man.
That's a badass story, man. That's some crazy shit.
Yeah, it is. It's wow. So man, you get a lot of different looks. You train obviously right now, but when you're at home, you're training a GF team in Moncton, and Fists Boxing, if I'm correct, and then obviously your home club is New Era with Crew Jeff in the team in Ottawa. What's the I guess strengths and weaknesses you're putting together with that team?
Yeah, so like I kind of like I still like I train. When I'm in Moncton, I train at Fists. I train a GF team, Spitfire.
Oh, nice.
Then in Fredericton, when I'm there, I'll pop into Synergy still. Synergy is actually where I started.
Yeah, that's right. Good.
So I'll pop in there. I train with Clint Kingsbury. I'll pop into Evolution from time to time. And then, but my team now that I'm like with, like when I go and do like my fight camps and stuff, is New Era out of Ottawa. Mm-hmm. So I'm there with Crew Jeff. We've been together for almost 6 years now. 5 or 6 years now I've been with Crew Jeff. So it's New Era. Wherever he's at, that's where I'm gonna be. That's my guy. Met and just clicked right off the bat. So wherever he lays his head is where I'll be. So
nice.
Yeah.
Do you spend a lot of time grappling? I mean, I know you have a win by sub and a loss by sub, but like you just tune guys in a few seconds usually, so no one's really seen your ground game. And I don't think I've ever seen you at a tournament, have I?
I mean, I did a victory tournament like a few years back.
Okay.
I used to train mostly grappling, and
Okay.
then when I started fighting, I just started kind of knocking people out,
Mhm.
and then I kind of veered away from that, probably more than I should have.
Yeah.
But that was actually the bulk of my training in the beginning was grappling, and then it just
Evolved.
kind of evolved from there. But it's definitely something that I've been picking back up because just the endurance of it
Mm-hmm.
is really taxing on my back. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
once I got the movement back, what I found was my muscle endurance had gone. It
Mm.
is specifically in the middle of the back where it got hit. So everything is fine, it's good until it's not. So there's like the muscles get tired, there's no real, or there wasn't. I've been working on it, but there was no real slow progression as
Mhm.
to kind of getting tired. It would just work, and then it would just boom,
Yeah.
the muscle would shut off.
No way.
So yeah, I've I got back to doing more grappling to try to rebuild that muscle endurance. And before this COVID thing, I actually started back with, like I said, with Clint Kingsbury. And then while when I'm in Moncton, I've been working with Jeff Jones and his wrestling club in Moncton. So,
Nice.
and things were, starting to progress there, but obviously everything's shut down now. So grappling, unfortunately, is one of those skills that you need at least one.
Yeah.
You need someone
Tough,
within
man.
6 feet
Yeah.
to work on it. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
tough.
so it was my primary kind of thing, and it's kind of taken a back seat. But it's definitely the importance of it is definitely back in my mind, and is definitely going to
Yeah.
be something to continue to work on going forward.
I guess especially at the highest level, which I mean, inevitably, you're going to get there. I'm assuming that's still your goal. I mean, your weaknesses are just going to be exploited at that level, so you can't really have any, can you?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm kind of at the level now where just, everybody's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's no easy fights, that's for sure.
Yeah, like just winning on pure toughness is. I'm kind of at the point where those guys are just weeded out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's now with everything with MMA being so popular, it's at this level everyone is good at everything.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so what's your plans? Are you looking to what's the future hold for Adam Hunter? I guess obviously, like John said, you want to get to the big leagues, but what's the plan on getting there?
I
Getting
mean,
back there, I guess.
I've always just kind of thought about fighting. I got my coaches, and I just signed with a new management team, Myland Management. They're
Oh, nice.
out of Vancouver and Toronto and LA, I think. So,
Sunny.
Yeah, we know who that is. Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
So we're just kind of taking it day by day. We had some potentials, and then this COVID thing happened. So, we'll just kind of work from there, and hopefully get a couple fights in, and dust off the old knuckles, and then maybe
Have you looked at all at
belt.
boxing or bare knuckle? I mean, with your
I've actually
skill set, like I'm surprised. Yeah.
I have a buddy that actually has a connection with the I forget the name of it, but it's the one that's like televised and stuff, like
BKFC. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I seen it. It's got
With the fist logo.
with Lopez and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Hell
So-
yeah, man.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So
I was just sitting there thinking, like, man, I mean, you touch somebody, they're done. That's just such an exciting way they set it up with the small ring, and you toe the line and you just go to work, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
man.
and it's just that old school.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
there's a new promotion too it's like it's a triangle. It's
What?
not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a triangle, like small triangle too. Like I don't
So
know.
that's like so you can't run anywhere.
Nowhere, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's an isosceles, but I don't know which kind of triangle we're going with here. But I'm pretty
God
sure
damn.
it's a narrow one. So yeah, there's nowhere to run for sure. But
Guess I know what I'm looking up later.
yeah, yeah,
Triangle fighting.
yeah, yeah. So anybody on your radar? I believe it was Julian you were supposed to fight. Is that correct for TKO? If I'm wrong.
Yeah, the last fight, I think that was in March, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. It came back. I had to step back. I think he ended up. They replaced me, and then something happened to him as well.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was just after like TKO. I think the event before that had like some like crazy like 11 or 17 injuries or something like that. So
Wow.
Whoa.
like spring is for the birds, and that season was just again
Yeah.
everything falling apart, I guess, for everybody. But
Oh man, that's tough.
What's going on with them? Any word from them at all?
for TKO,
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that they were shut down for a while, and then I heard that they were starting back up. So I'm not 100% with the TKO situation, but I mean, it was a pleasure working for that organization. So
Beautiful shows.
Yeah.
Really, really good shows. Yeah. So, well, it's too bad you never did get your hands on Ryan James. You know.
oh man,
Yeah, he's retired now, but the next.
he retired.
Yeah, he retired. Yeah.
Uh,
So.
he did. How did he do in there? He was a 2-2 his contract or something like that, or
Yeah, his last fight he took a pretty vicious knockout. If I'm correct, I could be
okay.
wrong, but yeah, it's I don't know, but I'm super excited when you and your girlfriend when you kind of started following us and connecting to us before our first event. I was super excited because I've been a fan of you for a long time, so it was cool, you know. And then you came to the event and we're very supportive of the event too, and
Yeah.
And you know, that's nice for us to see because it's none of these events take place without fighters, right? So
Yeah, and I mean, we enjoyed the show. Like we drove. How far was it? Like 2.5 hours. Yeah, we drove like 2.5 hours. It was a good show.
yeah. Well, that's it. Thanks, and we have lots to work on, obviously, but you know, it's I think it's you know, it's just a learning process, like yourself as a fighter, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know. Any advice for us? Anything you saw?
Um,
Since we brought up some shitty stories for you, you can call us out.
I think there was some.
Yeah.
I think the only thing was that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. At that event, did you do the national anthem before the final fight?
Before the whole card. Right at the
It was at the
beginning.
beginning. Was
Yeah,
it
it
at
was
the
right
beginning?
at the beginning.
Okay. Because there was a. Okay, so it wasn't your card. There was just a card that I seen, and sometimes people will do they'll do the national anthems before the main event.
Yeah.
But it's like for the fighter that's getting ready and doing everything and then getting out there and in the cage and then they're standing there and they have to go through the national anthem and then they can kind of go again. So I thought maybe it might have been that event, but
Yeah.
maybe it's because we went to see one like a couple weeks before. Did
Before
we?
that.
Anyway, I can't remember, but it was around that time we seen another event and they done that. But if that wasn't your event, don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah. No, we
But
played
yeah,
it the first, but it
either
was
way.
awkward because it was funny because our announcer, most people in the crowd, our camera should have switched to the Jimmy Smith and the commentators, but instead the camera was still on Craig, so he was standing there with the microphone, didn't let it finish, and everyone in the crowd's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like until the commentators finished, then it went back to Craig, and then it got screwed up, and the first guy started walking in. It was just a shit show to get going, right? But once it got going, it was good. But going back to Elite One, man, you fought for them for a lot. They're guys who've done a lot for the scene, same as ECC and stuff. How important is it for everybody to work together? You know what I mean? Everybody, promotions, fighters, athletes. Obviously, there's bullshit and people are going to argue and stuff, and that's the beauty of fighting, right? But you know, I think these people who have put on fights for a long time, obviously, they deserve a lot of respect for growing the sport, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for everybody, eh?
Yeah, I would say like that's the thing. Like I'm not sure so much about the boxing community, but I know with the MMA community, there's a lot of guys, but not a lot of events. So especially guys at the lower level, like when you get guys that are like at the higher level, you know, like myself or Aldrich Keith or stuff like that, like you know, other promotions outside the province are going to be looking and wanting to, so we can stay pretty active, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you get guys that maybe aren't so known, and there's only like one event every 6 months ish.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard for the amateur or the guys that are just kind of going pro to kind of get that activity, because you're not really getting paid, so you can't really travel. You're not really known, so people aren't really gonna pay
Yeah.
to bring you there.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they do, but they don't. So to have it another promotion like you guys in the East Coast, it's good. Like, guys were super active. When Elite One was in its peak and ECC was running at the same time, then you had, Cage Rage was running for a lot of the amateurs.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to Ground and Pound, but they popped in and did an event or two. So guys were really active, and there was a lot of a lot of things going on the East Coast. About what was it, maybe six years ago or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
But
It was a while ago now. Yeah.
yeah, so it was good.
And then New Brunswick had to rebuild their commission, which was like 2 years of no events.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember I was fighting back then when there was events like every month. And we'd always be on the go, and we'd always have guys fighting, and then it just died, and now
Yeah.
it's starting to have a bit of a resurgence again,
Yeah.
just these
I
past couple of years.
yeah, I see kind of not that I compete in it, but there seems to be a lot of jiu-jitsu going on too, which is good. There's a lot of tournaments, because before, when I started, like you had like Victory did a tournament, and then I think Abhaya did a tournament,
Mhm.
and maybe one more. Like
Yeah,
That's
now,
John's club. I
like
like
almost
that.
every 6 weeks or every 2 months, there's like another one. So that's really good for them. I know it's probably a little bit more to put together, an MMA event.
oh yeah,
Probably a little more
yeah,
hoops for a
yeah,
promoter to jump through, probably. But yeah, like I think there's a lot of room for a lot of horses in that stable, to keep guys active.
and
Yeah.
having it available is just going to bring more guys through. Like
Yeah,
I know there's people that are just kind of giving up on it because they wanted to compete, but they
yeah,
trained and never had anything happen for 3 years. And
yeah.
it's,
And that's the thing.
it's like you can only do
Like
that for so long.
yeah, like there was a period of time like between when I was still like fully active. So between events falling through, opponents pulling out, or just not being available because of something that came up in the army, I had like 7 events in a row that fell through. Yeah, either the whole event was done, or an opponent backed out, they couldn't replace it,
All right.
or just like something came up at work and then I had to go somewhere, and
Hmm.
so yeah, so it was pretty discouraging at
That's
that
tough.
time. But
Yeah.
having more promotions going on, you can
Mhm.
kind of fill those gaps.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a number at which it's too many, because there is
Yeah, of
only
course. Yeah.
there's it can definitely hold 2-3
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
promotions, and then maybe it revitalizes it and more athletes come out, and
Absolutely.
then a whole promotion for amateurs come out, because I think the bulk of the athletes in
Yeah.
the East Coast right now are probably amateur to like 1 to
Early
3.
pro. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
I'd probably say I'd even guess like 80-20,
Yeah.
maybe 75-25, like amateur pro. Because really, I guess if there's lots of pros, but I guess if you think high level pros, people like yourself, that are fighting regularly, I guess how many are there? There's
yeah. I mean, we'd probably have to sit and think about
yeah, but
It's not a ton though. There's a lot of
um,
that.
guys retired since 5
Yeah.
years ago when things were really going. And
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting scene. I love it, but I'm super excited to have you back. And whether it's with us or Elite One or wherever it is, I'm excited to see you fight, because you're a
Yeah.
fan favorite, you're a stud, and I pity
I
the
appreciate
fool.
Yeah, man. I've been a fan for a long time.
All right,
I've been,
folks.
I've been ready to rock this mullet under the big lights there. I've been growing a mullet since before tigers were cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hunter King.
Right.
There
I
you
Right.
love
go.
it.
Yeah, I got to ask you, man, for one last question before we get going. For all that you've been through, anybody who's been tuning in, obviously that's a lot of adversity. And here you are, still smiling, still positive, going in the right direction. Boom, I'm getting back to the level I was. How does a young kid do that?
I mean, that's a real good question.
Time to go deep, Adam.
Yeah, man. I
Lots
think
of yoga.
Yeah. Well, I think. I think. Due to whatever, I've been in such a dark place that in my mind it all was over, and I kind of, and this is like prior to the suspension and stuff, but coming back from that, but remembering that, and just being so thankful every day just to be 6 feet up instead of 6 feet below. I think remembering that, I think, is just everything is just gravy. I,
Beautiful.
I got a roof over my head. I got a belly full of food whenever I need it, and I got an amazing woman. I got amazing kids. I got amazing dog. That, by the way, I cut his nails today and made him bleed, and it really bothered.
Oh,
Yeah,
Poor
so it was
thing.
kind of
that's the
rough. I was
worst.
like, yeah, it kind of rotted me all day, but just to lighten things up. But you know, um, yeah, I mean,
Stay
tomorrow's
the
going to be a new
course.
day, and tomorrow's going to be a new day, and I just keep fighting. I just remember, being a soldier, and no matter what, you just had to go forward. And so now it took me a little bit of time, but I've translated that mentality
Nice.
to life outside the military. It's
Good for
not
you.
easy, but you guys are easy to talk to, so that
Good.
makes it an easy
Well,
thing.
hey,
But
be proud of yourself, man. That's not an easy thing. I've had some ups and downs in my life. Everybody has, well, not everybody, but some worse than others, dude. So to come out of that and be proud of yourself, man. Everybody can say whatever they want, but fuck them, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah,
there you
oh,
go,
damn
Still
right.
folks.
making progress.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Adam Hunter. There you go, buddy. That's right. No hate, man. That's right. Only love, my friend.
I love it.
There you go, folks. One of the East Coast studs. Give him a follow on Instagram, the Warhammer, Facebook. Reach out to him. A really, really sweetheart of a guy. So there you have it, folks. Adam Hunter. Thanks,
Enjoy,
Adam.
boys.
Thank you, Adam.
Peace.
Thanks for your patience with the mess up earlier. Talk soon, pal.
Oh, yeah, we got her.
All right, there you go, folks. Excellent, Adam Hunter.
That's
A
great.
great guy. Yeah, he is super nice fellow. Oh, you got the white belt tiers, eh? Old.
Yes, I've had this for a little while.
That's it from Bain Jiu Jitsu out in Vancouver.
That's it, man. There's sustenance.
Yeah, they're good guys. All right, let's move on. Before we get on to our next guest here, just a quick thank you to our sponsors here, Privateer Harley Davidson, Under the Gi, and Old Road Barbecue. How you doing? They're doing great things in the community right now. Currently delivering food to the Portapic area for all the police officers and paramedics on the front lines. So yeah,
Wow.
doing great things. So thank you to all those people out there working and doing their thing. So a great interview, John. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
no problem. All right,
You as well.
let's keep it flowing. Right on to our
Woo!
second guest,
There
a
we go.
good friend of yours, a guy you've known for a long, long time. I'll let you introduce him.
Yeah, Kenton Sefcik, registered acupuncturist, lifetime martial artist, just an all-around good, positive dude. And here he is. Can you hear me okay, Kenton?
Fantastic, bro.
Awesome, man. Look, he got the Bruce Lee shirt on. He's representing.
There you go. Looking good, man. How you doing?
100.
Welcome to the show, Kenton.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well.
Hey.
It's good to see both your faces. It's good to see you, John. I can't wait to see you in the gym,
man.
both gyms, as soon as possible. So
Absolutely, man. So for everybody watching, Kenton has trained jiu-jitsu with me, boxing, kickboxing, trains our Windsor Club with Chris. He's trained in Calgary and, his traditional martial arts. We'll get into that as well. But and also it works out of my Motive gym as our acupuncturist. We were so lucky to have him come back from Calgary last fall, and man, it's been fantastic. Like those 2 years when you were gone, we all just kind of fell apart without you, man. we need our.
I'm back to put everybody back together.
The magician is back. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard you called a few names: the magician, the wizard. It's important to have people like that around, buddy.
It is, and he's passionate about it, and he's learning, and he makes things happen. Kenton, let's get into it, man. So,
What's going
Chinese
on?
medicine, you've practiced Kung Fu forever, Tai Chi, did some amateur boxing, you're a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you compete. get into it, man. Give us some background on yourself. What got you onto this whole Western culture, Chinese medicine, traditional martial arts path, man?
Yeah, man. I was 14 years old. I was living in my parents' basement, as like most of us were at that time, and
Oh yeah, we were.
it was like 2 a.m. and this commercial came on, and I was born and raised in Calgary, and this commercial came on, and this like elderly white-haired guy, he was like beating up ninjas on a bridge. He was getting taken out, but then all of a sudden he came back, and anyways, I just remember it said call Temple Kung Fu at 243-2222, right? And I'm like 14. I was like, I'll wake up the next morning. I was like, Mom, you got to take me to this Kung Fu school. She's like, you're not going to no Kung Fu school. She's like, you quit piano, you quit soccer, you quit ice skating, you quit everything you try. And I was like, but it's Kung Fu. So I wore my parents down for a little bit, and they took me to this Kung Fu school, and it was probably the best thing they could have ever done, because here we are, start at 14. I'm 40 now, 26 years later. I got a black sash in Wing Chun Kung Fu, then moved to Nova Scotia and got tangled up with Tyson Cave and his trainer Bunny Phillips, and had a couple amateur boxing matches. Opened up twice for Tyson Cave, so that was pretty at Palooka's back in the day when it was on God Engine. Man, that was a spot.
Oh man, that was a spot.
And then
Awesome.
I've tried all sorts of things, man, like Filipino stick fighting and but getting older, taking shots to the head's not so much fun anymore. So I made the commitment about 2 years ago to get that black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and now that I have my blue belt, I can retire.
And we haven't seen him since.
Yeah, so that's my story, man. So what ended up happening is like I'm 14, do Chinese martial arts. I didn't see the signs, man. Like I was doing other things, and I remember I had a good friend of mine, Dave Rosen. Man, we used to do like punching and horse stance and stuff, and I look over at him and I drop lower, and he'd look at me and he'd drop lower. We would always push each other real hard in class, and I was lamenting to him one day, and I was like, man, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I don't have a career. And he was going into his last year in Chinese medicine college in Calgary, Alberta, and he's like, you're such an idiot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're supposed to go to Chinese medicine college like I did. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, go talk to the dean. So I went and talked to the dean, and I was completely blown away. So It was like it's like a 4-year program kind of smushed into 3. I kind of joke we have high school summer, so we only get 2 months off in the summer. So then I had those 3 years. I wrote the licensing exam for Alberta, and then packed her up and moved to Nova Scotia. And so I've been in practice since 2007. So what's that? 13 years.
13 years.
So I practice acupuncture, cupping, moxa, scraping, Chinese herbs, love Tai Chi, Qigong, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely my bag, man. So so that's kind of how I got into it, and it's all Dave's fault, and here we are.
I love it. It's interesting. I've been following you for a while. I actually messaged you
That's right.
before about it. Like for me, like some of your breakdowns are just wild, and for most people, like they're like, what? They have no idea about this kind of stuff, right? So as soon as like you kind of start paying attention to what you do, you're like, oh wow, that's right on the money.
At the end of the day, it's an old way of thinking, and it uses different language to describe health phenomenon. That's it. That'd be no different than like when you want to learn jiu-jitsu, and the instructor's like, all right, everybody get in your De La Riva position. And you got the white belt going, I don't know what the heck that is.
Yeah.
They have to learn the language in order to communicate jiu-jitsu. It's the exact same thing with Chinese medicine. You have to learn the language. You have to learn about qi, blood, body fluids, wind, damp, hot, cold, dryness, fire. You got to learn about wood, fire, earth, metal, water. You got to learn about Chinese medicine organs. And then you have to learn what those organs do from a Chinese medicine point of view. And then when a patient comes in, usually what they do is they give me a couple branches, because we're not really humans in a Chinese medicine sense. We're like trees, and we're part of a part of nature, not apart from nature.
Nice.
So by getting some symptoms from a patient, and then I can look at their tongue and I can check their pulse. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing is I get a few branches on the tree, and then I know the root. So then I can treat branch and root at the same time. And it sounds super foreign, but once you kind of like, again, master the language of the medicine, you can use the medicine. And what's kind of cool is like, I have all the respect. Like I had a couple of hernia operations and different things, tonsils out. They were irritating me when I was young. like I love Western medicine so much, and I love Eastern medicine so much. So Western medicine zooms in as far as it can go. Hey, there's that little thing right there. We need to take care of it. It's gone. But Chinese medicine zooms out as far as it can go and says, how did that whole body system create that thing? So they complement each other really, really well.
Very, very well said.
Well, speaking of how well said you are, you have your own podcast, The Strength of TCM.
That's right.
You are well said. Let's talk
Yeah.
about John.
You know, I think you're pushing 50 episodes now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm closing in on 50 episodes of the Strength of TCM. TCM stands for Traditional Chinese Medicine. What was quite interesting is that, unfortunately, there have been some schools, I'll just use that language, in Nova Scotia that were not very good at instructing students. Very monetarily focused, etc. What ended up happening was kind of almost an accident. I had somebody contact me and said, hey, I went to school XYZ and we all got our diploma and we all are registered acupuncturists, but I don't feel confident in what I went to school for. My heart just broke. I was like, that's just BS, because I went to a really good school. I wrote a provincial examination. And for those people that are in Canada, BC, Alberta, Quebec, Ontario, Newfoundland all require a licensing exam be required to practice acupuncture. But the other provinces, Nova Scotia, of course, is one of them. You could have anybody hang a shingle and say they do acupuncture, and it's not going to be illegal. There's nobody to stop them. The only thing that keeps the system in checks and balances is if somebody wants to use their third-party insurance like Blue Cross, Great West Life, Sun Life, etc. So with all that kind of going on, if you don't have an examination, and you can be pro-exam or anti-exam, but I'm kind of pro-exam for this reason. If you don't have an exam, then the colleges don't have to provide any kind of base knowledge for anybody. They can do anything they want. They just take your money, teach you garbage. So this one gentleman contacted me. He said, look, it's not just me. It's like a group of, there's 6 of us. Can we hire you to teach us privately? And I was like, okay, that sounds wonderful. So we just kind of made up a cash deal. We meet the first Monday of every month, barring a holiday. And I started thinking up okay, so if I had somebody who went to Chinese medicine college, but they didn't have confidence or they had a crappy education, what would I do? So I started creating kind of the quick and dirty acupuncture guide, and I call it the Strength of TCM workbook. So I taught, it was a year-long project. So I taught them for a year, and every month, I would give them 3 to 5 pages, and we would go through the information. I remember the first time I brought them pages, and they all said to me, this is the first time we've ever seen course material or be given course material. That's how crappy their education was. So at the end of the year, they've got a great education finally, and I have a workbook. And that's what just kind of spawned. And so I started posting stuff on YouTube and then on Instagram, and I created a Facebook group, and then I started creating a podcast. And I was like, and I remember watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video where this young kid asked Gary, I just wrote a book. How do I sell the book? And Gary's like, you give the book away for free. And the kid was like, what? He's like, no. It's you read from the book. And I was like, dang. And I'm like, I can tell people about my workbook. So what I started doing is I record a podcast. I'd read from my workbook plus ad-libbing, so it wouldn't be boring. And then I have a podcast guest on the next episode. And I kept doing this. And my workbook actually sells really well. And so that's kind of where the podcast came from. And now I'm working on a 10-hour online course again for these people that are around the world. I'm getting messages from people. This is so heartwarming. You guys, I got a message from somebody who said, I'm in the UK and I have dyslexia. Because we use alphanumeric codes for acupuncture points, it's really confusing for her. So she's like, your podcast got me through school. No word of a lie, a month later, I had somebody else from the US say that they're dyslexic and that my podcast is getting them through school. So, and then I get messages from Spain and India and even New York and be like, I'm confused. I went to a really good college. I went to a really crappy college. I'm confused. So it's so now that we've got all this time, I'm kind of sitting at home, can't see patients in the clinic, mandatory by the government. I was like, this is the time. So I'm creating this 10-hour course where I can help people from around the world feel more confident in what they went to school for.
Yeah, man. It's great having Kenton around the gym because he's an entrepreneur. He's also always looking for ways to expand upon his business and create media and residual income and help these people that need their help. And, he's always, floating me ideas, and we're fishing each other or sending each other back and forth information now that we're shut down, trying to just support, right? So
Trying to stay alive.
hey, man, that's what it is, right? We got to bridge this gap, come back stronger, and I mean, we're both doing the same thing. Like, I'm trying to diversify a little bit right now, get through this thing, come out stronger, and you're just creating content and making the best of it, man. Being productive, like, as a creative entrepreneur, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, one of the coolest things that I'm going to wrap it up this Friday, but I created what's called a communication series. So it's 3 webinars, and the first one was how to communicate how acupuncture works to patients. I'm a really big believer in not using the language that is designed for me to communicate with my acupuncture community and give that to the public.
Yeah.
I believe in trying to translate it into real language. So I had a webinar on that. The next one was basically how to teach patients to communicate to us. So Chinese medicine is somatic medicine. Western medicine is psychology medicine. So when you go to your doctor, you say, I'm having these thoughts. I'm thinking these things. And they go, okay, well, so here's this diagnosis. Chinese medicine, I actually can't do anything with that. I need somebody to say, I'm having heart palpitations. I'm having loose stool. I'm having painful menstruation, hot flashes, night sweating. I'm having a sensation that it's very heavy in my whole body, or my head is heavy. Like, those things are real language. So that was the second one. And then the third one is this Friday, and it's going to be on how to teach or how to communicate to our patients what they can expect from a Chinese medicine treatment. Because I liken acupuncture and Chinese medicine treatment to taking a course of antibiotics. I don't know where people get this in their head that they're going to go for one acupuncture treatment, all of a sudden all their problems go away. It's like, okay, so I'm going to give you one antibiotic, and you're going to go to your doctor and go, that's not fair. How come I'm not getting any better? Not going to happen. So you need, it's like
Probably because that's what I tell people. I'm like, he'll fix you in one
you're
treatment.
overselling me, bro. We need to undersell and over deliver. But yeah, so that's what's kind of cool. So yeah, so with my time, I've created this communication series just to kind of help these new graduates feel more comfortable in communication. Just like you guys are doing these amazing live streams and stuff like that. Just like you both do in your business. I mean, every business is a people business. If you have the inability to communicate what you do without, if you can't do it with passion, if you can't do it in plain language, you're just going to lose people. So the minute I tell somebody that they have liver qi stagnation, the only thing they heard was liver, and then the next time they see their doctor, they're going to say, I saw this crazy Chinese medicine guy, and he said there's something wrong with my liver.
I am that guy. For sure. I think it's super interesting, though. I'm just sitting here taking it all in because I wanted to talk to you for a while, and
awesome.
I told John before we come on here, I said I'm showing him my goddamn tongue.
Yeah.
On the
talk about the tongue thing, Kenton, because you post pictures of tongues, and it disgusts me, but I
think it's super interesting. So
every time I see him, he looks at my tongue and he knows what's going on. So
it's a weird introduction. Hey,
show me your tongue.
It's a good way to get people to shut up when they're talking too much in the clinic. Say, wait a minute, show me. So the tongue is a small part of the diagnosis, but it's a very important part of the diagnosis. I look for 4 things: color, coating, cracking, and shape. So a healthy tongue should be slightly pale. If a tongue is red or has red prickles, we diagnose that as heat, again, using naturalistic medicine. So color, so that's coating. So now coating, I'm looking for a thin white coat. That's a normal coating. If a coating is really thick and white, that's dampness. If it's like thick and yellow, that's damp and heat, kind of getting this kind of patterns going on. Okay, I could have other kind of coatings where I've maybe only got a coating on the sides. So I maybe have damp heat in the liver and gallbladder. Maybe have a missing coating. So something that's quite common that people will probably be able to relate to is after they take a course of antibiotics, they will lack a tongue coating. And they'll almost feel like my tongue has been stripped. And so what's happening is the yin, or the fluid, or the water of the stomach, is being kind of like dried up. And so then it can take the coating right off a tongue. So we have color, coating, cracking. Cracking is almost like the desert. So when water has gone from earthen for quite some time, it'll start cracking. There's different organ positions that reflect on the tongue. And for example, if somebody has a crack on the tip of their tongue, this is called a heart crack, and it can actually mean that someone's heart has been broken, or it can mean that they actually have physical heart damage, but it's likely more the mental emotional kind of part. There's other cracking that can happen. So like you can get cracking throughout, and this is kind of like general fluid deficiency. So color, coating, cracking, and shape. One of the most common cracks, if somebody were to stick their tongue at themselves after this live stream in the mirror, is a centerline crack just in the middle. So again, that's a digestive crack. In the West, we overthink a lot. So again, so like we had a heart crack, which is a broken heart. The crack in the middle is a thinking, like spleen stomach crack. So that's an example. So color, coating, cracking, and then shape. A normal tongue is just, I guess for lack of a better way to say, kind of like a half oval. A tongue that is swollen, that pushes against the teeth, when the person shows me their tongue, will present with teeth marks. And this has to do with a digestive deficiency. Oftentimes that patient is putting the wrong fuel in their body. So we often tell patients at that time, listen, just do me a huge favor. It's not rocket science. Stop eating dairy for like 6 weeks. See if your bowels clear up or you don't have such a foggy head. Maybe back off the wheat. Your sugar's really, tough one. Kills the immune system, that sort of thing. So that can tell me some things. Also, what's kind of cool is like a hammerhead shaped tongue. So it's straight, and then as it comes out towards the tip, it comes out. And this is often indicative of like bipolar and stuff, like very serious, like mental emotional concerns. So with all that information, I can get a pretty good read on somebody. Wow. And then, of course, I also need the patient to tell me. We used to hear all these crazy stories, guys. Like, oh yeah, this Chinese medicine practitioner came from China and he checked my pulse in the 6 positions and told me the last time I had sex. Yeah. Or the last time I ate McDonald's. Charlatan. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
The tongue, the pulse, what the patient tells me, they're all little snapshots. They're all little branches on a tree, and I'm trying to link them all up. And so, so that's what the tongue tells me. So it's definitely a big part of diagnosis, and it's important part of Chinese medicine.
Yeah, I'm mesmerized.
Yeah. It is really interesting, and I've never heard such like the in-depth explanation for it. It's kind of comply and know that you read it, but it sounds like a very logical approach with Chinese medicine. Like if it's cracking, it's dry. If it's wet, it's water. If it's
Yeah, and so we're using those and so what's kind of interesting is like if I ask somebody about their bowel movements, there's only so much information I can get from that diagnosis. Like if somebody's like, listen, I only poop like once a week, which is actually quite common. I find patients and I'm like, whoa, like we need to address that. Like that, if you're having one bowel movement a week, like there's a reason why you're having headaches and acne and like you're irritable and all this kind of stuff. Like we need to get the boat floating. So it's actually Chinese medicine kind of rhyme. We need to increase the water to float the boat. But we can get a little bit of information. But the same thing with the tongue. Like the tongue can give me like the color can tell me if somebody has like some heat, or maybe they're cold, or maybe their blood flow is poor. So like, and then coating, they can tell me if they have damp heat, or if they're lacking in fluid. Too much fluid, not enough fluid. And color, coating, cracking again. Like very, very dry, or like mental, emotional, like grief, or like something like that. And then shape can again kind of like shape can actually reflect the shape of a human being. So you have somebody who's got a little bit of a bigger frame and they're holding on to too much extra weight. Their tongue is likely going to reflect that as well, right? So it's kind of cool. It can give me little snapshots.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is, man. And we didn't even get the chance to talk about anything about martial arts at all. Talking about everything about tongues, but it's blown away for anybody who's out there listening, which there's at least right now I'm looking, there's 75 of you at home watching this. So all 75, if you watch and make sure you give Kenton a follow, a super knowledgeable guy. But I want to know about your kung fu and your martial arts kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm interested in. And not just that, but tell us a little bit about your martial arts background.
Yeah, so I started in kung fu, and at the end of the day, we all have to do what kind of feels right here.
Mm-hmm.
Kung fu can get a totally bad rap, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
No, so
it's all about and like anything, there's reasons why things aren't practical. Sometimes something is actually attribute training and actually has no real applicable, kind of street fight, boxing, MMA, whatever. It just doesn't really have, but why would you do it? I don't know. Why would you do sit-ups? Like so that my core is tight when I take a shot, or I can actually have a fast twitch fiber so that I can do those things. So yeah, Kung Fu still remains quite dear to me, the Wing Chun Kung Fu system. We got guys like Tony Ferguson kind of fooling around with some Wing Chun dummy stuff. And then, and then the Wing Chun guys lose their minds and they're like, I saw Bong Sao in his last MMA fight. And I'm like, but yeah, Kung Fu still plays a big part. And one of the reasons I think that Kung Fu plays a big part for me is that there's a huge collection of solo drills. So when I'm working at the clinic and somebody late cancels for an hour, when I'm, in quarantine due to COVID-19 and I'm sitting at home, when I'm like, I can always go to my Kung Fu drills. I can always do something. And what that has done for me is it's created a lot of creativity. So I love like all the martial arts communities, and like, I'm very lucky. I've got, a little bit of some blue mats at home. I've got a small Everlast heavy bag, and I'm able to start thinking using kind of that Kung Fu solo drill brain. And I'm like, what could I do for jiu-jitsu? So that's kind of like why I love Kung Fu so much. There's also kind of like, how do I say this? Like a romantic notion in my kind of heart mind about Kung Fu, because I grew up in 1990s watching those 1980, 1990 Kung Fu movies. There's always was kind of this a moral kind of high ground. The protagonist, in order to beat the antagonist, usually had to find some like weird drunk dude in the woods to like teach him Kung Fu, but he would also learn some Taoism and some Buddhism and like how to be a really good person. And that kind of set me off on like, I'm a huge fan of like Taoist thought. I really love the Tao Te Ching and all that kind of stuff, and the Chuang Tzu and the Lao Tzu, the three kind of Taoist Bibles. So yeah, so like that's what is kind of why Kung Fu still remains kind of dear to me. And I see so many commonalities after 26 years in the martial arts. I see so many commonalities, like keeping your elbow like close to your ribs, when in Wing Chun. Okay, well, keeping your elbow close to your ribs when you're boxing, and like keeping your elbow close to your ribs so that you don't give somebody an arm in jiu-jitsu. It's like so so I can keep going back to my Kung Fu for guidance, I guess.
Cool. Interesting. I love that. And I think, John, I know you're a guy, how it's so important to be open. Like I went through periods in my jiu-jitsu career fuck it, whatever you call it, jiu-jitsu tenure, I guess, where you're like, oh, that martial art wouldn't work, or whatever you think, that's stupid, but it's that as you grow in martial arts, you realize that gets sucked out of you because you become a better martial artist. And then you respect different things, and you see other martial arts and how they can be successful, and all the good people involved in that particular art, right? It's really interesting. I love it.
Just better understanding of what it really takes.
Oh yeah, every martial art has a family and a community, and like there's so many people in jiu-jitsu who are like, oh, it's so badass, and in Kung Fu I'm sure it's the same thing, or boxing it's the same thing. Everybody thinks their martial arts the badass, right? Because that's why we're all in martial arts, because there's that little tiny ego there, right?
Everybody wants to make the right decision. That's why everybody trucks the best truck and their car is the best car.
I personally know that my jiu-jitsu is not the best jiu-jitsu. So I'm well aware and no bones about it. And my Ford Focus is not the best Ford Focus out there either.
But it is the best car.
Best in my driveway.
Staying on the martial arts topic, Kenton. Like, I know you've worked with a bunch of guys from the gym. Obviously, helped them out with their different injuries from jiu-jitsu or fighting. You've worked with me a ton. And recently, you had a guest on your podcast talking about weight cutting.
Yeah.
For fighting, and I can't remember her name, forgive me, but I listened to the podcast. It was very interesting. She works with high-level athletes and people all across different, not just fighting, but I think she worked with like power lifters and models and all kinds of people that worked within weight classes or had to fluctuate their weight for a specific thing. Like, I mean, I know working with athletes and fighters is something you enjoy and you kind of strive to work towards. Like, how important is that as like your ultimate goal? Like, are you leaning heavy into trying to grow in combat sports or sports in general, or are you looking to just kind of? I mean, I know it's an interest of yours. Are you pushing hard to kind of?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm pushing hard. I appreciate the nod. Her and her business partner, the woman on my podcast, they run Perfecting Athletes, and they have. I'm going to bring his name up again, but they have like Tony Ferguson. They have a bunch of other really high level athletes on their roster, and I find that like super interesting in helping people cut weight or recover from injury or recovering from a fight. One of the best things that I had for myself after long hours of sparring and like coming off of a fight in front of like 500 people is my acupuncture, is to give myself acupuncture. Like nothing feels worse than the headache the night after, when things really start kind of coming down. Doesn't matter if I won or I lost or it was sparring, whatever. But yeah, having acupuncture and Chinese medicine in my corner was really helpful for me. And it's been helpful for like, some of the guys that I've been working with. And so it's definitely an interest in mine, but what's really dear to my heart is being a general practitioner. I want to treat the fighters and the athletes, and I want to treat the mom who's like has anxiety, and I want to treat, hot flashes and night sweating and depression, and I want to treat knee pain. Like I just there's so many people that specialize and they really like specializing, and over my 13 years of practice, I realized that I don't like to specialize because I just want to help everybody, and it really keeps the job interesting day in day out.
No doubt.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That podcast was super interesting, and I'd be interested to see over the next few years if acupuncture doesn't grow as a treatment with athletes and become more well known. Like, it seems like we kind of blow through these different fads in martial arts, like, oh my god, he just kicked so and so's ass, and all he's eating is fucking cucumber and broccoli. You know what I mean? Or when like that Edu Portal guy came along and everyone started running along fence posts and shit like that. Like,
now everybody's Wim Hof breathing.
Hey man, right? Like there's these trends that go through, and I'm not saying acupuncture is a trend, but maybe it's time's coming. Like maybe that spotlight is just around the corner, right? Like I feel like it could jump off at any time. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the woman's name that was on your podcast.
That's okay. Yeah.
But listening to her talk, it was like, like wow, like maybe this is right there, and maybe this is what people are going to start. Using to take themselves to the next level and as a more common treatment.
Have you ever had it, John? I'm sure you've had it, being buddies at Kenton.
The acupuncture?
Yeah, you've had it many
times. Oh,
many,
man,
many,
I've seen Kenton probably 100 times.
Yeah, I've only had it probably like 4 or 5 times just in my ears back in the day. But, yeah, it was amazing to me.
Right on. One of the biggest things I tell everybody is, give that acupuncturist like 2 or 3 treatments worth. I know that's money out the pocket, but if they don't vibe for you, go find another one, because like if we can't write modalities off, we can't write all the physios off and just say, oh, they're crappy, they just catch a bag of tricks, all physios are garbage, all massage therapists are garbage, like osteo is garbage. I wouldn't say all mechanics all car mechanics are garbage. Like I wouldn't take my car to the car mechanic and he screwed up the work that I asked him to do. And then I'm like, all car mechanics are garbage. I'm never taking my car to the car mechanic again.
I'm never taking my car ever again.
Right. Be like asinine, right? So like,
Yeah.
there's good mechanics. And there's kind of a funny joke that is probably that we've borrowed for Western medicine. What do you call a bad doctor? You call him doctor.
Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if there's somebody listening, and you tried acupuncture, but it was with somebody, who maybe did a weekend course in acupuncture or did a 200-hour course, maybe you should go to see somebody who has like a diploma in acupuncture, and maybe you should see somebody who wrote a provincial exam, and maybe even higher than that. Maybe you should find somebody who's got all those things and comes with a bunch of recommendations. Because if I'm looking for a car mechanic, I'm going to ask all 150 people in my circle, like, who's the best car mechanic? So yeah, for sure.
And how many people actually do that? Do you know, like that in today's society, that's the problem, right? Because no one does the research, and then they go to Joe Blow, who's known for being a shitty mechanic, and their car breaks down. They're like, first thing they're back on Facebook, go, fucking Joe Blow did a shitty job, blah, 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 blah. But you do your consumer research, right? So you put your own money into a shitty product, you get shitty stuff in return.
100%. Yeah.
The truth, right? So make sure you don't have shitty acupuncture, and make sure you check out Kenton.
100.
That's right.
Yes.
There you go. That's my plug. And
Thanks, Chance.
I'm not ballsy enough to do a free tongue exam on the computer, but
Come closer to the camera. Seriously.
There you go.
Even more.
Oh, this is creeping.
Do it, Derek.
Let's get it. Let's get it in there.
Come on,
Let's go.
man.
All
I
right.
can already see the cracking, actually. And
I
so,
just don't want to know what's wrong with you.
okay. So one of the biggest things is you're kind of missing a little bit of the coating on the tip of your tongue. Like, it's quite dry overall.
Okay.
And people will often tell me like, well, I didn't drink a lot of water today. No. This is like months, years, etc.
Yeah.
And also a little bit on the side. So maybe some problems falling asleep, maybe some heart palpitations, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Also a little bit of kind of like stress for like over a long period of time, resentment, anger, irritability, that kind of stuff, like brewing for a long time, kind of like eating away at the sides of the tongue, and a little bit of cracking throat. So just kind of overall like dry kind of tongue, right? So
Jesus
so
Christ.
at the end of the day,
this is like spot on.
Man, I can't help laughing.
It's like
I talk to Derek every day. Like, this is hilarious.
This is like getting your
This is killing me right
fortune
now.
read on live TV. I'm crying. This is hilarious.
Awesome.
Keep going. Sorry.
yeah. So like, I mean,
Oh my God.
some stuff that you can definitely kind of do at the end of the day is definitely drink more water. Maybe a little bit of lemon in the water. That kind of helps kind of with that kind of like liver. That's your Chinese liver. It's interesting because they translated like organs. They're the same. So then when I use the language, you're like, oh no, my liver. And I'm like, no. It's your Chinese liver. It's not your Western liver.
I've had kidney stones like 5 times. Right.
Okay.
So I do drink lemon water actually, but I'm currently on pills for fungus on my foot. Just fuck it. We're going all in on Facebook. Not even
we got the kidney stones and we got the
Jesus
fungus.
Christ. I'm gonna be strutting here soon. But yeah, I got this on my foot from
time for your exam.
Pump the brakes.
For like the last 2 years. I've had just like athlete's foot on one side of my foot, and like I've had creams and pills, nothing will take it. So now I'm on this fucking some kind of pill, some kind of fin, and maybe that's what's drying it out too. But
that's probably what's doing it to you. To be honest with you, with all that kind of information now, is that a very common treatment for an infection or fungal would actually, because you have to think like us coasters, we know like when it's really like the dog days of summer, right? It's hot. Yeah. It's like 32 degrees, and then they go, it's 41 degrees today with humidity. And you're like, and you just like, you go outside and you feel like you're like actually wading through a pool while you walk down the street. Like that's like damp heat. Okay. And that's like infection, fungus, etc. So how do you get rid of that? Well, you move to Alberta and where it's really, really dry. So that's just kind of like my kind of like this versus that. So then, you're going to take a medication. What's it going to do to you? It's going to dry you right out. So that's probably, kind of what's happening. From a Chinese medicine point of view, foods can cause a lot of damp heat. Stress can actually create some of that too. But so, for example, like deep fried fatty foods, ice cream, because it's cold and really, really damp, and then the body's hot, so it can kind of change it a little bit. Milk products, sugar, any kind of like foods sort of like that. And I always have to be very careful because we know in the West that when we talk about food and exercise, they are very emotionally charged topics. So in the clinic, I'm very careful. I'm like, when I'm like, hey, maybe you should like cut back on the dairy product. You'll never make me stop eating cheese. It's like, I love cheese. And I'm like, how much cheese do you eat? They're like, I pop those Babel cheeses all day. And I'm like, this is such a bad scenario. So like, I'm very careful how I tell people things. So I use kind of like, very general terms, but stuff that can cause damp heat, dairy, deep fried fatty foods, sticky cloying stuff, those types of foods, sort of thing. So, so
interesting. Okay.
So kind of overall, I'd be like, hey, just like super clean diet. If it's, like crackers and cookies and like, ice cream and fish sticks and stuff like that, just like, just pump the brakes on that for a little bit until that kind of gets cleared up. Keep doing your lemon water. That's fantastic. Outside of that, keep taking your Western meds, right? Man.
I got to get rid of this damn athlete's foot, man.
Yeah. And I mean, topically, tea tree oil is awesome.
Oh, we got acupuncture is hippie bullshit, buddy. He said. Well, I'm sorry.
Is it?
There you go.
I'm sorry you
got
feel,
your first date.
You feel that way.
And welcome to the internet, eh?
And I would absolutely love to stick some needles in you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for following, Nolan. It's that's it, right? Everybody's got a different opinion, and that's the beauty of life right now. But
100%.
I got to thank you for joining us here, man. My computer's about to die, and I don't want it to die and shut the stream off here. So, everybody, thank you for joining us. Kenton, you got any final words for us, my man?
No.
All right, there you go. All right, that's a lot of work.
He was waiting for that.
That's it. He was spitting the gospel tonight. You did a great job, man.
Thank you,
again. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, we can get you back on. You should hook up with a girl in Dartmouth. She's been on our podcast before. Nicole, sport doc. She lives in the Valley. Doctor Sport. I don't know what her name is. And it's Sport Doc Cokes or.
Yeah, that's it.
But she's kind of the same kind of vibe as you, like very positive and into the same things. And between all of us, I think we can make our own Fight League Atlantic Performance Institute. And hey, mind blowing, right? Who knows? Who knows?
Just made my night.
Yeah.
That's it. Who knows what the future can hold? Be acupuncture everywhere, Nolan. Watch out, buddy. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. That's episode 38. My man, Kenton. We'll see you tomorrow night, folks. Kenton, thanks, pal.
Thank you, Kenton.
Thanks,
Good
gents.
to see you, brother.
All right.
All right. That was great, folks. Kenton. It was a good guess, John. It was super. Man. That was super embarrassing.
Hey, man. That was pretty awesome,
Yeah.
And for you doing that was cool, man.
I put my tongue on the line for the sake of science, folks.
And entertainment.
And I'm going to make we'll make sure our editor after the show puts in a big picture of the tongue as the first of the broadcast. But that was awesome, super interesting. A great guy, great guest, John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was a good night, man.
Yeah, it was
Adam
great.
was really cool to talk to. Like that's a guy that I've known who he is for forever, but never talked to him. I think at our event was the first time I ever actually met him and shook his hand.
Oh, nice! I didn't get a chance to. Cool, good for you.
Yeah, really, really cool to chat with him for a little bit.
Did you see his fight? His knockout, that head kick knockout.
Which one, man?
It's it would be his second last fight. Yeah, it was the second last fight. It's on YouTube. Check it out. He's just like,
oh
he
man,
fights.
he just knocks people dead.
Oh.
Like I remember when Adam Hunter would fight, we'd all be there at the beginning of the event. Like, oh man, like somebody's gonna die tonight.
Some people, well, we don't want anyone to die, obviously, but you want,
you know what I mean? Not really
I know,
die,
but Freddie, you want those exciting people, right? And he's got that kind of star capability, right? And as look at us as promoters, man. You're always looking for that next, but it's not old school like back in the day, like Don King, where you're gonna take that kid and you're gonna bring him up and they're your property, right? Those days aren't over; they're gone, right? Because there's so much opportunity, right?
We're not even looking for that.
No, but I think there's
people want to see guys like Adam fight, man, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, his loss recently came from a KO. You think Adam was pushing the pace that whole fight? Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's getting hit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's true. Man. I agree. It is exciting. Well, let's talk about it tomorrow, shall we? Got a great episode on the docket tomorrow, John. Let's figure out who we got. We got a Cape Breton native on the show tomorrow. Stephen McDonald, Cape Breton, trained out in Toshido MMA in Kelowna. That'll be good to have him. Hopefully we can get him out here for a card. I think he's going to fight on the June 2nd card for Fight Night Productions out there. He's fought a couple times. I think he's 4-0 now as a pro, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. You don't know either, but and then we got Dan LaRiviere on as well. He's a fighter out of Ontario. He's got some roots back here in Nova Scotia as well. So he just did a Lethway fight over in London, England. So it'll be cool to chat with him about the vicious video, like nasty shit.
Just imagine.
Yeah, nasty. Yeah, interesting. So anyway, folks,
very cool.
This episode was sponsored by Iron Supplements. Make sure you get out and check them out. Halifax, locally owned, and a great supporter of this show. So check them out online, Facebook, Instagram, Iron Supplements. We'll see you tomorrow night, folks. If you can be anything in this world,
be kind.
Peace out.
Woo!